Hey everyone, and welcome to Zormau's Airsoft Corner. Last week, well, 2 weeks ago technically, Umarex has released the VFC PDP gas blowback pistol in Germany. It is upcoming for release internationally and in Asia this week, so why not make a first impressions video about it, I thought. First of all, will there be differences between what I have here and what the international buyers will be getting from places like Proact Store? Yes. The German version doesn't have a few markings on the right side of the slide that the Asian version will have, and the Asian version apparently does come with optics mounting plates in the package, while the German version did not. What I got was this pistol, one magazine, the hop-up and, no, not that, the hop-up adjustment tool, sight adjustment tool, and cover plate for the red dot mount, and that's basically it. Well, instruction manual and warranty information as well. But aside from that, it's just the pistol, no optics mounting plates. Like I said, you will probably get those from Proact, at least that's what it's listed at, so you won't have to pay extra unlike us German folk. I was lucky enough to score the one I wanted from another user who bought all 4 plates and didn't need this one, so I could mount my SCRD68 on this relatively easily. The surface finish, I should mention, is the same, seems to be the same used on other VFC pistols, so I don't expect it to be all that scratch resistant in the long run. As you might be able to see, the slide catch has already taken a bit of paint off of the bottom of the slide where it rubs against it, but on the outside it's still pretty okay. There's a bit of rubbing here, a bit of rubbing there. Nothing too egregious so far, but it's only been like a week and a half. The magazines are the same VFC finish that you're used to. Those will also flake eventually, but I don't mind with the magazines. Okay, material-wise, the slide is cast pot metal with a relatively decent aluminum content by the weight of it. The sights are plastic. They are actually Glock sights, so you can mount real Glock sights to this pistol. The frame is polymer and it's pretty nicely done. The backstrap is rubber, and the texture on the grip and backstrap and also the front of the grip is really well done. It's extremely grippy and very ergonomic. I really like how this feels in my hand, even though I had to retrain my grip a bit because my thumb would usually rest on the left side of the pistol and that would depress the slide catch. So I have to retrain myself to hold the thumb aside a bit, but it's not a big deal. Disassembly, I'm only gonna gloss over because I won't be dismounting my red dot this time. You pull down that catch, pull off the slide. If it uses a guide hop system, so you'll have to reset that to 0 to remove it. Then you can undo the spring guide, outer barrel. The inner barrel hop unit come out just like on a Glock, so you have to pry it apart a bit and push it out. And the hop unit works exactly the same as a guide hop V5 Generation 5 Glock from VFC does. It should have also similar performance, though I haven't been able to test that because, well, I haven't been able to go to the range and I won't be for a fair while because of an injury. So don't expect me to talk about to you about how incredibly accurate it is. I expect it to be decent and serviceable out of the box, but on my Glock I felt the need to upgrade to a unicorn bucking so I could get better accuracy, and that worked out. So if you're using anything less than a 0.3, it should be fine out of the box, but 0.32 is required already to be maxed out. That much I could tell at my short range indoors. The blowback unit is secured out of the box with one screw that sits underneath the rear sight, which just slides out. And once that's out, you can then remove the blowback unit from the bottom. The fake extractor will come out, so bear in mind not to lose that, but it's not a necessary part and it just lays in there. Don't worry too much about it. The blowback unit itself is interesting. It's a plastic blowback unit with a steel overmolded insert. So the cocking point is steel and the mounting interface for both the screw that holds the BBU in stock, as well as the mounting plates for the sides, those are all steel, so that's a good thing. Seal is good. It uses a cup seal piston head design, and a nozzle that is reminiscent of a G18C, but isn't the same, I think. It produces out of the box about 0.8 to 0.9 joules, which is pretty decent, and it has a 90mm GBB type inner barrel. The slide also has a reinforcing steel pin inserted into the slide area behind the slide catch, so it doesn't get deformed and worn down as easily as you might see on, say, a Glock. Which is a very, very, very nice improvement to see, because that is has been one of my gripes for years with gas blowback pistols now. On the frame, the rail insert at the front is a bit of a pain to remove, because you have to remove that roll pin, which is very, very tight. This pin comes out from right to left. That is also holding in the slide catch, which is pot metal. And I don't really think that's a great idea to have a just friction fit pot metal parts together. But so far it works fine for over 1,000 shots. And you also have to unclip the takedown lever, and then you can just push out this pin. I'm not going to do that now because, well, it's pretty self-explanatory in this case. It's not more complex than with a Glock. In fact, I think it's easier than with a Glock, but that pin is really tight in there, so you should have a roll pin punch for that. Aside from that, the trigger uses a straight up Glock FCG. It is exactly like a Glock 17 fire control group or Glock 45 fire control group. You can even drop in a Crusader Glock fire control group made out of steel to prevent any breakages that might occur on the pot metal one. Personally, I've gone with just an AMG hammer spring to reinforce, or not to reinforce, to de-enforce the hammer group, but extend its life as well as improve efficiency and cold weather function. So far, I haven't run into any light striking issues with the AMG hammer spring, but it's the start of summer, not the heat of summer. The trigger is pretty good. I think it's a lot better than on a Glock, which is probably because of some magic in the back. There is a defined wall, and then very little pull afterwards until it breaks. There is a fair bit of over travel. As you can perhaps see, I have put in a grub screw from the back after removing everything to prevent a lot of that over travel, because I'm not a fan of over travel. The trigger bar has two springs with pegs in here. Here is a semicircular peg that pushes up on the trigger bar, and here is the trigger return spring at the back with another peg basically that pushes it forward. I think these two pieces are instrumental in making the trigger feel as crisp as it does, because on the Glock you don't have that. You just have that spring pulling it forward and up at the same time, and that's the only real difference between these two trigger groups. Yet the PDP feels a lot more snappy and crisp than the Glock does. So I think that might be the reason for that. The takedown lock here and the front is steel, the pins are steel, the springs are obviously steel, the trigger bar is steel, but everything else is pot metal. Well, the screws are steel as well, but the rails are pot metal, the slide lock is pot metal, the hammer FCG and parts are pot metal, but in my experience, they hold up pretty well if you weaken the hammer spring. What else is there to say? Yeah, about mounting a red dot. By default, it comes with a red dot cover plate that just covers this slot here. You do get, depending on where you order, 4 red dot mounting plates for different footprints. I'm using plate number 4, which fits the Vector SC-RD68, which is an excellent and very light enclosed optic. These mount to the BBU via 2 M3 screws at the back. and also secure the BBU, so you cannot remove the blowback unit with the red dot mount plate installed. So it's now secured with 3 screws instead of just 1. And these 2 screws go into that plate. Bear in mind that you need to make sure that these screws aren't too long so that they interfere with the nozzle. You will notice that they interfere if the nozzle doesn't return all the way and stays like this, basically. It should return all the way on its own without any friction, then you're good with the screws. I also recommend putting a bit of Loctite and using the proper screw dimensions. These are M4. Do not use M3 or M3.5. You will strip the threads. Aside from that, I'm going to splice in a picture of a damage that has occurred on mine, because this plate has had a bit of play front to back, and the crossbar that goes atop the nozzle served as a recoil lug essentially and sheared off, because it's got very little contact points to the slide, and it's not a solid piece because it's just pop metal. And ultimately I didn't even notice because it had no effect on function at all, and I don't expect it to have any effects on function in the future, because now I have put 4 layers of soda can shim at the back, and that holds it very neatly and tightly in place, so that my red dot side plate is now fixed as well. The screws do the rest of the lifting. So that is a major wrinkle, I think, but ultimately I hope it doesn't matter in the long run. If Bomber or Nova or Detonator ever release an aftermarket slide with a nicer finish and maybe a bit lighter, because this is, while not heavy, it could also be a bit lighter still. That would be really neat to address that issue as well. If they release their own optics mounting system, they might get away with not having that crossbar atop the nozzle that breaks off. But yeah, other than that, efficiency-wise, it is extremely impressive. I was able to get 140 dry fire shots out of it in one string without any major breaks in between, out of a 10.4 gram fill of ASG Brown with the red dot installed. I probably, if I can, I'll splice in a video from that as well.
50 shots.
And even with BBs, which is less efficient than shooting in dry fire, I was still able to get 100 shots out of it with pausing only to reload the gun. And I think that's pretty good, pretty impressive, and I really like it. In the cold, well, with the cold magazine, I also tested it with a cold magazine, chilled down to 0 degrees on ASG 168, which is a light red gas, and it cleared the entire mag, unlike my Glock, which does not clear the entire mag before it starts failing to feed. This did 22 shots in one string without any hiccups and without any failures to feed. The Glock did not. I think it's probably the seal between the blowback unit, the piston head, and the nozzle, because the routers on both the Glock mags as well as the PDP mags, which are PPQV2 mags, are floating and can rise up a bit to create seal against the nozzle and be depressed down if the nozzle is sitting a bit lower, which is good, which is an excellent thing that I like to see in all my VFC guns. Well, I don't see it in all my VFC guns, but I like seeing it in every gun I have, and the VFC FAL is one of my favorite guns for that very reason. Good. I think that covers everything about my first impressions. Well, I gotta find a holster for it because it doesn't really work with my Safariland GLS 578. That is that I use for my Glocks and high cappers. But there is a Safariland solution GLS that works with it. I'm just gonna have to expand into more holsters, I guess. Anyway, I think the PDP is pretty hot. It feels very nice in the hand. It shoots very well. It is very efficient. There is some durability concern about that crossbar, but I'm ultimately not worried about it. And it is optics ready out of the box, provided that it comes with the plates for you, or you order the plates separately. Price-wise, in Europe and Germany, it retails for 190 euros plus plates, which is another 20 euros or so, I think. You can get discount codes to get it for for 10% less, so just under 200, which is a fair price because it's a really good pistol and it's really fun. Yeah, hope you found this useful, and see ya.